Hey, Diagnostic Guru here. We are super excited that we're launching a line of kids' superpower capes. Why? Because we believe that owning your superpower early can help kids build confidence, make authentic decisions, and trust that what they bring to the world is inherently good. And all superheroes with superpowers have a costume, and capes are a must. If you go to our website at diagnostic-guru.com, you'll see our banner to order now. Help your little superheroes in your life find and own their superpower. You can pick from 4 different colors, as well as embroider their superpower on the back, like my son, who's compassion in black and yellow, and my daughter, sixth sense, in blue and red. Empower your children with a superhero like superpower now so they can launch into their own confident universe.
I would like to introduce you as our next Diagnostic Guru guest. We're speaking today with Stephanie Espy, who's on a mission to empower the next generation of STEM leaders, the founder and CEO of Math SP, an academic STEM coaching program for young minds. But we can't stop there. You're also the founder, executive director of STEM Gems program, providing role models for young girls interested in the STEMs. Very near and dear to my heart, and something I'm looking to also be a part of very shortly here. But instead of me telling about you, Stephanie, I'd love to hand over the mic to you and just give a little bit short snippet of who you are and what makes you the next diagnostic guru.
So I'm Stephanie, and I am a product of DeKalb County Public Schools. I am the daughter of two loving parents who are both engineers, and I am just really passionate about education and making the world a better place. So when I decided to study chemical engineering, it was really the results of my love for math and science, but also my love for wanting to help the world in a way. And so when I think about like the next generation, when I talk to these young people, I ask them, how do you want to impact the world? Like, what change do you want to see in the world? And how can you use engineering and science and STEM to do that? So I think it starts with like that impact or that big idea or that problem you want to solve, and then helping to think through how you can go about doing that and how you can use your skill set in engineering and science to do that. So that is, that was my pathway for so many years up until I decided to think about this other problem, which is the representation problem and the exposure gap problem, and thinking through, okay, how can I help solve that problem? Is when I decided to start Math SP, because Math SP is all about foundational skills in math and science subjects. And then later on, STEM Gems, which is about exposure to careers in STEM, but also real people, real women, and learning their stories and their journeys. And so that's just, again, as an engineer, you think about problems and solving problems. And so the big question in starting those two companies was, how do I close this exposure gap? How do I ensure that everyone at least has the opportunities and everyone at least has the exposure and the access? And so they can decide, is it for me or is it not for me? But if you don't have the exposure and the access and you don't have the opportunities, then it's never going to be an option. And so I want to make sure that it is an option for as many people as possible.
I wish I had that opportunity at that age. It really is all about where you are, what you're exposed to, who you know. It sounds like you had a really loving, intelligent, family life where both your parents were engineers, so you were really inspired by them, which is a pretty rare, occurrence. So kudos to your parents. I'm sure they're really proud of you and all the success that you've brought to these two programs.
Thank you. And, we'll say, yes, it is pretty rare to have two parents that are engineers and they decide, okay, I'll do that as well. However, the women that I interviewed for the STEM Gems book did not have that story. A lot of them were the first in their family to become an engineer or become a scientist. They were the first in their family to even go to college, or the first in their family to get a PhD or whatever it was. And so you don't have to have those two parents to guide you towards a STEM career pathway. You just have to have some inspiration from somewhere.
Would you say that is your greatest success to date, are building these two programs?
I would say so because, entrepreneurship is not an easy thing. So STEM Gems has been around for 17 years.
That's
And I'm sorry, Math SP for 17 years and STEM Gems for 10 years. It's 10 years next year. And so I think to have made it as long as I have is an accomplishment that I'm very proud of. It's taken a lot of work and dedication and, odd hours of the night doing different things. It's not a 9 to 5 type of thing. So I have, I've had a lot of struggles along the way and lots of moments where I'm like, let me just go back and get a job. Let me just kind of make life a little bit more seamless, especially once I had a child and having to, parenting came before anything else. So it's been definitely had its struggles and its challenges, but I do for that reason, I feel like it is one of my biggest accomplishments and just having to have made it so far and continue to grow and continue to thrive as an entrepreneur.
Well, congratulations on that. What is it that, that one point you go to, or that how you inspire or be your own internal cheerleader to get you through those moments and not go back to just like, first of all, scientists, we don't work 9 to 5, as you said, right? But to go back to that standard paycheck, brick and mortar side of role and sort of abandon what you've built. How do you continuously inspire yourself?
Like I said, when I was in that school the other day and those girls gave me that big hug and I got to hear from them and just see their faces light up, that right there is gonna last me a while. When I feel, like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired, or I'm applying for endless grants to fund the programs, I think about those girls and it propels me to keep going and to get it done. I think about my own daughter, who is a 7th grader, and her friends and her experiences, and that propels me to keep going. And I think about my own story and my own experiences, and that propels me to keep going. So there's many, many factors. And then, of course, I just have supportive people around me at all times that, when I'm like, oh my gosh, or I didn't get that grant, or there's a frustration, or there's a challenge, or what have you, calling the right people and having the conversations can help you keep going. So it's a combination of just like seeing your work and seeing the impact of your work. It propels you to keep going, as well as having the support network around you, and the validation that, you're on the right path, and a lot of prayer and a lot of prayer to know, like, okay, guys, this is what you want from me. If so, I'm going to keep at it. And so that, of course, helps as well to know, like, this is the path this is my purpose. And once you find that purpose, you kind of just have to keep at it.
Yeah, finding one purpose can be such a calming thing. It's even like the stress is different because you're waking up and doing what you're meant to do and want to do every day.
For sure. For sure.
Well, you mentioned your book, The STEM Gems. I'm really excited to read it. I actually recently purchased it. It's highlighting 44 diverse STEM careers. The titles you would expect to see are like the standard nouns of roles of like astronaut, doctor, scientist, etc. But just looking at the women that you've put in the book, it's very specific, like you said, real people, real paths, that are attainable. And it felt intentional. You sort of touched upon that, putting your book in that structure, or bringing those women to tell their stories. What was the approach like for you in bringing this book together, and why was it so important?
So it was a long journey, from start to finish, about 4 years, that included a lot of interviews and writing and revising and editing and, creating and designing and the whole gamut. I had never written a book before. Never have I ever thought about writing a book before, or, it was just one of those things that once you have this idea, once it's placed in your heart, you just sort of like, okay, I guess I'm doing this. And you sort of just do it. And there was no turning back. So it was a long process, a long journey. It started with a lot of research of different career opportunities that are so-called hidden, that I wanted to make more visible. So what are the careers that I wish I had known about when I was a teenager, a preteen? And what careers are just, again, you don't find them in mainstream media. They're not talked about a lot. You may have never met anyone in these fields because, again, it's just not something that's going to be as accessible as a doctor or a teacher. So profiling careers that are making a big difference in the world, but you don't necessarily see that, see people behind the scenes making that difference. So that was the first step, is just brainstorming like, okay, here are some amazing careers that are just so hidden, lesser known, and they are careers that are impacting the world in a big way. Then once I had that sort of big list of careers, then it was a researching, okay, let me find a woman in each of these spaces that is just crushing it. That is just, again, I call these women the Beyonce of their field. They are crushing it, or they are impacting so many people, so many different lives, their communities, the world. So in finding those women, then it was a process of reaching out to them and, finding them through social media, through the internet. It's like, okay, let me find this person. Let me see if I can have a conversation with this person. So a lot of like reaching out, introducing myself, and letting them know what I was up to and what I'm working on. And so then began the process of back and forth and understanding their story, what they do, how they got into it, what inspired them, how they chose that field. Was it intentional to just kind of fall into it? What experience, what person led them to that career field? We're talking about careers like in geology, actuary science, data science, all types of engineering. It's just so many different careers. And so again, how do you decide I'm going to be an actuary, or I'm going to be a physicist or a geophysicist? People don't even know what that is. They don't even know it's a thing. So how did you not only know that it was a thing, but decide, yes, that's a career for me? Understanding those things. So it was a process of just listening, understanding, learning. And then once you interview so many people, you probably know this, there's a lot of things a lot of commonalities, a lot of differences in people's stories and pathways, but also a lot of things that we have in common. And then those commonalities became sort of like, okay, despite where you were born and raised, despite what your parents did, despite your age, your race, these are things that these women have in common. And those became sort of like the how-to part of the book, which are the last 8 chapters of the book, is putting those commonalities into themes. That no matter who you are, here are 8 themes that all these women have in common, and here's their advice. So that was another aspect of writing the book, is picking out those commonalities and making it sort of like a how you can too, versus, just a here are the stories and here are their stories and here's what you can do. So it's a combination of like opportunities and career pathways, and learning about different women, but also learning like, okay, what can I do starting today that can help me in my journey? No matter what age you are reading this book, whether you are a teenager, preteen, whether you are, early 20s, working professional, young professional, even mid-career professional, there's something for you to have been gained by kind of reading the advice, understanding the stories of these women. So that was the process. And then the creative process involving just coming up with the title and the cover and the layout of the book and all those fun aspects of producing a book. And then even the fundraising part, because once the book was fully completed, it was an expensive book. It's 232 pages in full color. I didn't want it black and white. I thought that, if I want to appeal to like a younger demographic, it had to be, a aesthetically pleasing book. So I had to make sure that it was full color, and there's a lot of pictures and a lot of things in there. So I had to do a crowdfunding campaign to even raise the money for the first print run in order to be able to print. I think the first print run was 2,000 copies at a time. So to get the cost of printing low enough to make it reasonable. So
Yeah.
that was, a huge like campaign to raise $30,000 for that first run of that first print run. And then even deciding, okay, is it going to be traditionally published or self-published, and going through that whole process and thinking through the pros and cons of each. So a long, long journey to get to the point where the book, it was just an idea, to like literally in my hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was, a lot of work.
It's like having a kid.
Yes. Oh, yes. I do feel like this book is almost like my second child.
Yeah.
I have a beautiful daughter, but I also have this book, which is also like my baby.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. And I get the color piece because it's gems. Gems are beautiful and bright and colorful and shiny. You don't want to put it in black and white. You want to
Right.
put them out there, right? In a
Yeah.
nice, obvious way. So,
And though it would have been much cheaper to print if it was black and white, it just wouldn't have been as, I think, successful long
yeah.
term in reaching young girls. So yeah, that was a decision I made early on that I think was the right decision, but it did make for an more expensive book to produce.
But it sounds like, you have, I don't want to use the word scrappy in nature, but you find ways to find funding. It's a lot of bootstrapping, right? Crowdsourcing, applying for grants. I know you're regional right now, mostly in the Atlanta area. Are you reaching out from there as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that our programs work, at least our club program, is that you can start a club in any school, in any state, in any community. It's really kind of this model where we train the teacher to run the club. So as long
Mm,
as you have a teacher, or not even a teacher, a parent, a community, a Girl Scout troop leader, a community leader, a youth leader, a church leader, it just takes that adult that is interested in forming a club to understand how to go about doing it, and we help you with that process, and then you can start a club. And
oh, that's
so
so
for
cool.
that reason, we've been able to start clubs more than just in my area, but in other cities and states. And that's continuing to grow. It's nice to see. And so we're going to continue to, encourage, people in other places to start clubs. And then we're also, of course, like on the ground here in Atlanta, having other programs that are more in person, that we're able to, hopefully replicate and have those in other places as well. But for right now, our summit program and our summer camp program are local programs. Our club program is more of a national program.
Okay. Well, great. Well, hopefully those who are listening, you'll get some reach outs and maybe we can spread the word and start some of these clubs out, broader reach within the United States. Uh, as you know, the premise of this podcast, it's not just about highlighting women leaders like yourself, and your trials and tribulations, are really important to hear for others of us to learn from. So through this whole journey from the very beginning, could you share with us what your one good, one bad, and what ugly is?
Oh, goodness. Sure. So let's say the one good is the impact.
Mm.
And just recently, as we're coming upon our 10th year, I put together an impact report, and I was so proud of that. And that's on our
Oh,
website now, so you can check it out. But just thinking through the past 10 years, like, what have we accomplished?
yeah.
How many clubs have we started? How many girls have we reached? How many participants have we had in our different programs? Just kind of thinking through the numbers and coming up with, what is our overarching impact for this past decade? So I'm very, very proud of that. That's definitely, I would say, the good. It's just the impact, the reach, and the sustainability of programs. So the bad is really the economy we're in right now. has
Mm-hmm.
been really, really challenging. And, it's just unfortunate because we've had to make a lot of pivots and changes and think through how to continue to grow in this different climate that we are in when a lot of nonprofits are losing funding, especially federal funding,
Mm-hmm.
and it's becoming more and more competitive to find funding in order to sustain, let alone to grow. So that is probably the bad and the ugly, honestly. It's
Yeah.
like both. Yeah, that's a challenge, and I'm in constant conversation with not only my board of directors, but also support groups of other nonprofit leaders. There's been lots of different conversations to help navigate and
Mm-hmm.
figure out how to continue and how to make sure that you are, you know, not just, not having to cut programs and water down programs or even like abandon your mission completely in order to be more quote unquote acceptable. So that's been sort of bad and ugly. It's just figuring out, grants that were a lot easier a couple years ago are now, more, not that they're harder because there's more competition for those grants,
Yeah.
and they're also smaller in size than they
Yeah.
once were. So
It's
figuring out
true.
strategy of how to move forward in this current climate is together the bad and the ugly. But we
Yeah.
will continue to press on,
Yeah.
um, and we will continue to be innovative in our approaches and be as streamlined as possible while staying true to our mission.
That's the most important thing right there, right? Staying true to the mission.
Mhm.
It'll all work out in the end. It's just a little bump in the road. I mean, you've survived this long, a 10 and a 17-year run. That's really impressive.
Exactly. And we don't anticipate stopping now. We just have to, figure things out as engineers do. We're always figuring things out, right?
Yeah, that's
Problem
so
solving.
perfect.
And
Yeah.
that's exactly what we're doing is problem solving and coming up with alternative solutions and, just thinking of new innovative ways to do the work that we need to do.
Well, with that, what would you say your superpower is then?
I would say staying calm in the midst of a storm and and just being resilient.
Yeah.
I think that's something I learned years ago. This being
Mhm.
resilient. So when someone says no, that doesn't mean you give up. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
it's not a good idea. That doesn't mean you're not on the right path. Because for every 10 no's, you will get a yes.
Hmm.
Or maybe every 99 no's, you get a yes. Whatever that ratio is, it's important to be resilient and to be persistent and to stay on mission. So I think I'm pretty good at that. Just from years of being an entrepreneur and being told no,
Hmm.
and still here and still going. And so and it's hard because when you hear no, you sometimes feel that punch in the gut where it's like another no, or
Yeah.
another we're so sorry email, but it's okay because you'll get that email that's like congratulations, and that'll be all worth it. So
Yeah.
being resilient, don't take it personal, just find ways to be better and to tell your story better, so
Mm.
that the next time maybe it will be a yes.
Yeah, you're just always trying to not necessarily recreate yourself, but explain your story in a way that resonates with people who maybe didn't resonate with the first person, right, that you spoke to. And when you're talking about just like all that's going on with the economy, you're bad and you're ugly and your superpower, I just see you like being the science geek that I am, being like the eye inside of the storm, right? And the and the tornado, like you're sitting there all calm and all this is going on around you and it's still working just perfectly. So
Oh,
that's
inside I'm not calm. Inside I'm like, you know, but it's
Outside, you're the eye, inside, you're the hurricane or
yeah,
the tornado, I mean.
yes. And it's a lot of like, I'm not very good at meditating. I try, I'm still not very good, but it's a lot of just like, okay, you know,
Yeah. Take a breath.
okay, take a breath,
Yeah.
how do you move forward? And how do you go past this? Like you can sit on it and let it get, spin, give yourself a time limit to like sit on it. And then once your time limit is up, okay, it's time to move forward. It's time to press on. You can't wallow in that for too
Yeah.
long. And that's really, I mean, again, it's not easy.
No.
I have
Control what you can control, right? I always try to remind myself of that. I'm not always successful, but I try.
exactly, and you just have that's what you have to do. Try, and it's
Yeah.
getting easier as you go along. It's still not easy, but it does get
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. No, it's true. Well, I feel like you just get better at it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and at some point, the hope is like it doesn't phase you at all, right? You just it's just
Yeah.
part of life. It's just natural part of life. You're not gonna win them all. But I think when you're used to winning and
Yeah.
then, all of a sudden you're not, it's hard to make that adjustment and to realize like, okay, what's going on here or like what happened here. Um, and that was like, growing up as someone that was top of my class and used to making the good grades, the best grades, and all that sort of thing. And then, I got into every college I applied to, and
Wow.
just again, that first experience of rejection
Yeah.
was hard because hadn't had much rejection up until that certain point when you have your first rejection. You're like, what is this? This doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
good at all.
Yeah.
Which is why it's important to go through that earlier on in life so that your
Yeah.
first sort of setback is not later in life. Like get used to that early on.
Mm.
But yeah, so just realizing it's just part of life and that you're not going to win them all, and that's okay.
That is okay. But as an engineer and a scientist, we know what it's like to develop experiments that fail time and time again, right? And
Right,
get
exactly,
them.
yeah.
So that's the resilience piece right there. Even though you were succeeding at academically, you knew how to solve when people did say no. So well, thank you so much for coming today. It's been an honor to talk to you. I'm really incredibly excited about the STEM Gems program. It's something I'm going to look into myself and try and bring to my community. I ask others who are listening to look into it, get on your website, reach out to you, and also get the book and see that there's a multitude of amazing women out there in this field. And thanks for bringing us together and finding the mentors and leading the next generation. So nice to meet you, Stephanie.